Hi, I'm Marcel, and welcome to me streaming into the void, mostly about books. I am doing Criminality's Read What You Own challenge, which means my husband has picked out 100 of the books we already own, wrapped them up, given them all a number, and then I am picking them one at a time from this jar. And I'm going to try to not buy any more books until I've read all of them. And this time I have read The Tower by Bae Myung-hoon. I don't know if that's how you pronounce Myung. I'm sorry, I tried to look up how he pronounces his name, but I couldn't find it. This is a science fiction short story collection about this huge sort of town within one block, town-wise skyscraper that we don't really know what to call it because it's over 600 feet, no, stories high, 674 stories high, but not necessarily. It's weird. It's like it's a living human being. So this is a collection of short stories, and as with most short stories, some were amazing and some were kind of a miss. I could just start with the first one, which might explain why I sort of really enjoyed it. So in this sort of tower that they call the Beanstalk, there is a research center that studies power and the power development based on movement of alcohol and liquor, because this is a way, it's become a form of currency in this society. And what they realize is that something has happened with the flow of liquor, and that is that everything has gone to one apartment, but it's not moving out of that apartment, which either is, okay, there is someone who has a drinking problem and is drinking our sort of currency, or there is someone with a very, very high power in this apartment, and it's a dog. And that's why it's not really moving, because dogs don't really give people gifts and currency. But dogs can't really have power. And the scientists start arguing with one another of how do we understand this in our sort of map of power. Where does dog fit into this? And in that context, everything with this works because it's so absurd, yet he manages to make the unfamiliar and absurd familiar. And I think that is, if you want to write a good science fiction or speculative fiction, I think the art of, if you have to sort of make things unfamiliar yet familiar at the same time. And in the first short story, where it talks about the dog, and the dog returns in other of the short stories brilliantly, it works because it's so absurd. It becomes so unfamiliar, but yet turns around and becomes familiar. And that's sort of why I don't think that some of the other stories in this don't work. Why I think that some of these stories don't work, because what he is then, the context he's telling them in, it's not unfamiliar enough. It becomes sort of almost flat in a sense. There is one love story In this, where someone who is a verticalist falls in love with someone who is an horizontalist. And why he doesn't just call it capitalist and communist is beyond me, because he might as well have. There is nothing unfamiliar with that story. It's a cute story, but it's not an unfamiliar story. It just becomes try hard in a sense because it's not unfamiliar enough. And I think that's quite sad, because there is so much potential within this whole idea of this beanstalk, which the tower, skyscraper, whatever you want to call it, is called. There is so much potential in it, and when it works so brilliantly. For example, with the dog. Or there is another story about a god who decides that to give proper protection, you need to just do something weird, and he therefore trains an elephant to be his sort of horse/guard dog. And everyone around him is like, what are you doing? What is this? And there it works. When it works, it's such brilliant writing. The interview that is done with the dog's owner as the interpreter, because it's I'm just going to read it so you can sort of realize what I think. So, your acceptance speech was impressive, asks the interviewer. You think so? Answers sort of the interpreter, which is the owner. It was an honorary award, so I couldn't prepare anything. It caught me completely off guard because I'd never won in competitive categories like Rising Star or Best Actor before. There was something I had meant to say, though, not for this festival per se, but in case I didn't get up on stage for a similar honor someday. But my mind drew a blank when I actually got up there. What did you mean to say? Woof, woof, woof. What did you actually say? Woof, woof. John, when it works. But I think that it works best when it's at its most absurd, when it's at its most unfamiliar, because it then also becomes very much familiar. So if you are interested in science fiction, maybe it's your cup of tea. I don't know. I'm happy I read it because, again, the short stories that worked were hilariously funny, especially the first one. But I now need to pick out my next read, and I am trying to go on the bottom this time, and figuring out what is... 95. So give me a moment. I'll now try to find book 95. 95. Oh, it's Stoner by John Williams. I have heard so many brilliant things about this. This is about William Stoner, who grew up in poverty in Missouri, and then he takes an education. But of course, what then happens to you if you are from a very poor background and going into this completely new culture, which is someone with a high education. What does that do with yourself, your identity? What does that do to your relationship with the people back home? My mother absolutely loves this book, and apparently she cried a lot when reading it. So I'm going to now hopefully enjoy this, and I'll let you know what I think. So subscribe if you want to know what I think about this, and thank you for listening to me screaming into the void.